Well, good morning, everyone. Now that we've done the introduction to the Psalms with Psalm 1 and 2, I thought to go through the Psalms in a topical manner. In other words, group 2 or 3 Psalms together that give us insight into God's character or into an area of our lives. I'll be taking topics like God's Majesty, which I'll do with a couple of Psalms over the next few days, seeking God, trusting in God's protection, resting in God's care, to name just a few of the topics that I'd like us to cover through the Psalms. Most topics will have 2 or 3 Psalms in them, but I'll still do 1 Psalm a day, which means that each topic might be 2 or 3 days long. Well, this morning I want to kick off with the topic, God's Majesty. And over the next few days we'll look at Psalm 8, 19 and Psalm 139. Right up in Psalm 8, you'll notice that this psalm has a title like this: for the choir director, a psalm of David, to be accompanied by a stringed instrument. This tells us 2 things. 1, David wrote the psalm, and 2, the psalm is meant to be sung to music. Now, we don't have the music, so singing it might be a little challenging, but it's a psalm that declares God's majesty over all the earth and the heavens. I mean, you can imagine what that must have sounded like, sung by a choir with instruments. In the very first verse, we are introduced to how extensive God's majesty is. The definition of the word majesty here in its biblical reference means mightier than everything else. And we see God's might or majesty extends over everything, because David says, "Your majestic name fills the earth, and your glory is higher than the heavens." There's no place that God's might or majesty doesn't cover. But then in verse 2 it gets a little curious, because David says, "You've taught children and infants to tell of your strength, silencing your enemies and all who oppose you." But this is a technique used often in the Bible. The psalmist is contrasting the weakness of children and infants with the power of God's enemies. And the point is that even the weakest have abundant strength when they speak the name of God. The might that God has over everything is why we can call on Him in our weakest, and why the Apostle Paul so boldly in 1 Corinthians 1:27 says, "God chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful." This morning, are you feeling powerless in your situation? Well, David encourages you and I to call on God, who has might or majesty over everything. Amen. Guys, I really want to thank you for sharing your morning with me. I pray God will bless you today, and remember His might and call on His name.